Right. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you here today. I'm honored that you chose to spend part of your day with me here. And this is going to be a fantastic and amazing show. I will introduce my guest in a moment, and I promise we're going to learn a lot today. I do want to take a minute or two to share some things that I've been learning and thinking about lately, and I typically do this every single week. 4 years ago this week, I released a book called The Greatest Lessons I Learned from My Dad. And it's one of the things that I am happiest about in my life because my dad passed away almost 5 years ago, and I wanted to honor his memory by sharing with the world some of the greatest things that I learned from him. And some other people contributed their chapters too, because I figured if I have lessons to share about my dad, maybe other people do too. And so we put together a really great book. It's available on Amazon. Less than a week before I sent the book to my designer to get the layout done, however, I realized that there was something missing. So I wrote a letter to Dad and made it the last chapter of the book. It was a really emotional experience, and rereading it a few days later made me glad that I did it. And so if you need closure with a loved one who's no longer here, consider writing that personal letter so you can say all the things that you didn't get to say before. It made a big difference for me, and it may be therapeutic and very releasing for you as well. Once again, the book is called The Greatest Lessons I Learned from My Dad. It is available on Amazon. And if you have not downloaded and subscribed to Success Profiles Radio on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, please do that. Even leave a 5-star review. That would mean a lot to me. And you can also hear the show on Audible and Spotify and iHeartRadio and Amazon and anywhere that you can hear great shows like the one you're listening to right now. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce my guest. His name is Alex Crowther. Let me tell you about him. After more than 30 years as a global advertising executive, his entire life changed when he developed complex regional pain syndrome, the most painful disease known to medicine. And it dismantled his identity, his career, his confidence, and his nervous system. And most people who have this kind of illness fade quietly into the background, but he refused to disappear. His collapse became the doorway to his awakening by going beyond the medical system, studying the neuroscience of pain, and discovering a modality called pain coaching. He found his way back to purpose, alignment, and healing. He's not pain-free, but he's healing in a way that allows him to thrive again, and that shift saved his life. So today he is the CEO of Pain Coach Academy and another organization, Reframing Pain, where they train people to help the 70 to 75 million American adults living with high impact chronic pain and chronic illness. He has a book coming out called Reframing Pain, Understanding Pain in Everyday Terms, and it explains how pain actually works in the brain and the body and how anyone can influence their own pain experience. This is going to be a lot of fun because we can actually direct our pain to something useful. I can't wait to unwrap and unravel all that we have to talk about today. So here we are with a very special guest, Alex Crowther. Alex, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was a great little intro. And by the way, I wrote the name of your book down because I'm really interested in that.
Yeah.
My dad's still living, but he's pretty late in, late. He's 83, 84, and you
Hmm.
never know. You're at the I never know stage, right?
Right.
So yeah, I wrote that down because I was figuring, having heard what you said,
Hmm.
maybe I can write that letter while he's still here. You
Yeah.
know, uh,
In fact, a few months later, I decided to do a greatest lessons I learned from a mom, and she is still
hmm.
here. And I didn't tell her I was doing it until my copies arrived from Amazon. I said, I have a surprise for you. And she was absolutely floored that I would even think about doing this.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing that. I got something out of the show already, so
Oh,
thank you.
wonderful. That's great. Well, I know we're going to get a whole lot from you as we embark on this topic. But first, I do want to talk about whether or not you envisioned early on that you'd be where you are right now.
Oh gosh. No, never in my, I am just so far from the person I was.
Hmm.
Um, you know, pain, I think chronic illness, but I can only really speak for pain. Pain does something to you. It breaks you, it humbles you.
Hmm.
It sort of has you. I mean, I know I've heard a lot of people talking about illness over the years, but it fundamentally changes your perspective of life and what's important and everything else. But I lived this life where in the Western, the the sort of like the way we're brought up in this Western world that
Hmm.
what success looks like, and
Hmm.
it's owning your own home, and it's having a little bit of acreage if you can afford it, and a nice car, and
Hmm.
you get sucked into that. And To me, I was chasing a paycheck and I was chasing status and I was chasing things. And I don't know, like I got sick and none of that mattered anymore. It just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really is very interesting. I mean, when you have goals and those goals are about material things, when you realize that your health is in jeopardy, none of that matters anymore. The one thing that you took for granted is the one thing that you want back.
100%. Yeah, and I absolutely took my health for granted in every possible way. I would, honestly, I would eat too much, drink too much. I would binge, I would diet, I would exercise occasionally, but probably for the wrong reasons, for vanity versus
Yeah.
health. So yeah, I had it all upside down. I just had it all wrong.
Yeah, for sure. So we will explore the idea of managing your pain and taking control of your life, but I do want to explore your career path a little bit. How did you
Yeah.
get to this? Because it's really interesting.
Yeah, so yeah, I worked in advertising for just about 35 years. And even recently I've had headhunters come back to me. I've got a lot of experience in like automotive, and I've run great big global bits of business, like the biggest bits of business, Global General Motors and Chrysler, Jeep, Mercedes-Benz. So big, big stuff.
Hmm.
And I've had opportunities to kind of head back in that world, but I know I'll get sick again, and I cannot risk that. But more important than that, so anyway, look, I climbed the ranks, and I
Hmm.
worked really, really hard. It wasn't like natural. It was really interesting because I thought the way it was the way it was,
Hmm.
where you just work really hard like a dog all the time, and it just isn't that easy. And what I found since, if I jump to right now, where for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm in alignment. And it's kind of weird and very, very strange to me that when I'm doing the work that I'm doing now, the work just sort of like falls out of me. I don't have to do much. It just comes really easily and naturally. And what I will say to all of that is I mean, I don't know how spiritual various people are,
Hmm.
Brian, but
Yeah.
I had this sort of awakening along the way. And certainly the reality of kind of where I am now, that I felt like I'd had all of these clues and signs along the way that I'd been being pushed off this path. That it was always very hard, and that business is pretty cutthroat in many ways. And you hit 40 and you're a target for being let go and redundancies and layoffs and all that stuff and being fired and all the fun things that come from living in the corporate world. And
Hmm.
I just thought that was the way it was. And now I see it as a different sort of thing, which is throughout my career, the gods in the universe were telling me, you're on the wrong path, buddy.
Hmm.
And I just didn't pay attention. And
Yeah.
it almost feels like to me that this was the gift that was given to me. This pain was given to me in such a way of, you know, we're going to give you something that you can't not now pay attention to. And
Yeah.
now here I am in a role of service and healing and everything else. And it feels very, very aligned with who I am and what I should be doing. And it's easy. It's really, really easy. And helping people just feels really, really good.
Yeah, I like that. So, what is your big why? What really gets you going? I mean, you've touched on it, but I'd love to hear you articulate what is your big why? What is your big purpose? What drives you?
I mean, look, I decided very early on that my story is kind of it's like a big bowl of yarn that's kind of knotted up. It wasn't a straight line by any sense, but I decided that my pain had purpose.
Hmm.
That there was a purpose to this that I sort of tried to explain a moment ago.
Yes.
And so I figured pretty early on that the purpose there wasn't sort of becoming necessarily a coach myself, but it was being pretty noisy in the world, which is why I'm on a show like this, talking to, honestly, if I'm talking to 10 people or I'm talking to 10,000 or 100,000 people, it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
If I decided if I could change one life, I went through a lot of suffering. I had 10 years of suffering with this illness, without the medical system per se really giving me much direction about things that I could do apart from offer me medications or pills, pills or surgeries. And, the reality is that there is a whole world of, other healing modalities. So, and that's how I kind of got to the pain coaching thing. I discovered it in a very dark moment myself. And, that's my big why. And look, it's not a great epiphany, but it's like I need to let as many people know as possible that we are trained as we grow up, that when we feel unwell, we should be going to the white coats. And
Mm-hmm.
look, that's okay a lot of the time, but I would say with chronic illness, when you're getting a lot of I don't knows, and I got 10 years of we don't know, everything looks fine, it's time to look, it's time to look around you. And, I happen to find pain coaching, which for the first time, actually, Brian, somebody listened to me. Somebody listened to me for 1 hour. I know you're an advocate of coaching. I've heard you talk. And I believe that everybody should have a coach, like I've heard you say.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was amazing was, my coach's name was Jareen, and I always try to honor her by mentioning her, giving her name, because she literally saved my life. She changed my life. And, what was incredible is in meeting one, she listened to me. She asked me what was going on. Could I tell her the story of what was going on? And, that was an hour-long meeting, and I spoke to 55 minutes, and I explained everything that was going on. And it occurred to me when I got done in that meeting that this was the first time in 10 years that someone had just let me explain what was going on and what was wrong. And so I don't know. Look, my big why is whether it's one person or 1,000 people, Brian,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to help as many people as I possibly can.
Absolutely. We're coming up against our very first break. I cannot believe how quickly this is going. We're
Oh,
with
wow.
Alex Crawford, and we're going to talk about how to manage chronic pain and how to deal with it and how to turn it into something really, really good. And we're going to talk about all those things, and we'll talk about his upcoming book on the other side. And we will be right back. This is Success Profiles Radio. Please stay with us. Don't go away. We will return shortly.
Wow, I can't believe I moved the chat to where I'll actually see it this time. I did not pay attention at all.
Awesome. Commercials are playing in the background. We can talk privately now. Fantastic. So, what's up with you after we're done with this?
What is up? I normally spend an hour in the evening meditating, actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I do an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. It's like the thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's my greatest medicine, honestly.
Great. That's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna probably eat dinner when we're done with this. Maybe cook up some eggs and bacon. That'll be
oh,
awesome.
that sounds good.
Ah, it will be. It will be. But yeah, I spent this afternoon preparing for this and working on my magazine, which I want to be done by a week from today at the latest. It's a monthly magazine. This is
What is your magazine? I haven't caught that.
it's called Ultimate Achievers Magazine,
Okay.
and that's a monthly digital publication.
Okay. I'll check that out.
UltimateAchieversMagazine.com. In fact, I'll tease that coming out of the break.
Okay. Cool.
And this show will clearly demonstrate the principles if I can do it, you can do it. So let's get back to the show. This is Success Profiles Radio. And here again is your host, Brian K. Wright.
And we are are back. This is Success Profiles Radio. My very special guest this week is Alex Crowther, and we will be talking about his book very shortly. But if you have not subscribed to Ultimate Achievers Magazine, you can go to ultimateachieversmagazine.com and you can pick your subscription option. The first 7 days is only $1. You can pick whatever you want, and you can read every single issue we've done going all the way back to December 2017, where the first issue was Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. This month is our 8-year anniversary. I cannot wait to release this month's issue, and that'll be coming up in the next few days. So once again, that's ultimateachieversmagazine.com. So Alex, let's talk about your book called Reframing Pain, Understanding Pain in Everyday Terms. That's coming out soon, right?
Yeah, it is in the very final stages of being typeset or whatever they do.
Okay.
But it's in it's final proofing. It's up for free. It's for free. It's a free book.
Okay.
I figured I would make so little money with the book anyway that I might as well give it away. Again, I said just before the break that my goal was really just helping as many people as possible, and that was the ambition when I wrote it. And the reason I did this was when I got when I knew that I was in a pain state, and before it even got diagnosed, I was trying to find books that helped me understand pain, and they sort of were either one end of the spectrum or the other. They were either so juvenile in the way that they were written, so basic that there really wasn't much to learn, or they were the other end of the spectrum where you really needed to have, a PhD to understand some of the terminology and language. And so that wasn't particularly helpful either. And AI wasn't quite what it is now either. So I decided I would write a book that I needed at the time. And so I kind of broke the book into three parts. The first part is explaining what is going on in the brain. So what is pain? I mean, we all understand what pain is at a very superficial level, but I try to break it down and help people understand, what is going on in the brain. And there's a lot of research that shows that pain neuroscience education, which is what learning about pain is called, when you have a basic understanding of pain, it actually helps soften your pain. It helps you realize that you don't need to catastrophize and believe that you're dying and all those terrible things. Just by having a good understanding is very, very helpful to a pain state. So that's the first third of the book. The second third is some tips, tricks, techniques, and ways that you can soften pain. And a lot of them we're very familiar with. So, the meditation and mindfulness practices and stuff like that. But I try and really simplify and make very, very accessible a number of things that you can do. But I also include in there things like a trigger response plan. So anybody that has a pain flare, anybody that has chronic pain understands that we might get flares. And so I try and help with little tools like a trigger response plan, which is, hey, when that happens, instead of having to dig deep and you're in this big foggy mess, I'm trying to think about, oh, shoot, what shall I do now? You know what your tools are. They're accessible. They're stuck inside that kitchen cabinet. They're on your phone. And all you've got to do is to open up the phone or the kitchen cabinet. And there are the 3 things that you're going to do that work for you. So very, very simple stuff, but it's the sort of stuff that makes a big difference. And then the last third of the book are all sorts of resources, including a glossary of the terms that when you're with your medical providers or you're reading your notes from the doctor, it sort of explains all of that stuff. So again, it's a book that I hope will be useful to people that are newly diagnosed and trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
Absolutely. So how does this book support its readers or listeners living with stress, pain, or burnout? You mentioned that you have some tools, and you'll probably share some of that coming up as we evolve through the show.
Yeah. Yeah, so the most important thing for me was, and actually my coach did it, and I think my second meeting with her was, she said, "Do you understand pain?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I live with this all the time." And the reality is I didn't really understand. I really didn't understand how pain worked and how the more we receive pain, the better we become at it. So, I mean, it's like anything, Brian, learning a language or riding a bicycle, we know how things get better and easier as we grow up, and that's called neuroplasticity.
Hmm.
And neuroplasticity is not very helpful when you're learning pain, but there's a really positive and optimistic part of this, which is just as you can learn something, you can unlearn something. So
Hmm.
that's the great big hopeful thing that I was told that started to change my relationship with pain, which is if you can learn it, you can unlearn it. And the best way of unlearning pain is learning safety, which sounds kind of strange, but so we go through, or I go, and the book talks about this. So I talk about how we can teach ourselves safety, and one of the techniques that is very helpful to me is, I imagine a lot of the time I'm talking to the 7-year-old version of myself. Talking to the 50-something version of myself is a slightly less nurturing conversation. But when I think of myself as that 7-year-old little boy, and I try and reassure him that there is no tissue damage, and I am safe, and I'm not about to be chased down a dark alley. But it's giving a lot of reassurance because while the logical me understands that I'm okay, that I don't have tissue damage, my brain believes that there is damage and it is trying to give me and send me a protective warning signal. My brain is stuck in a cycle of giving me warning signals and pain.
Hmm.
And that is the case of most people with chronic pain. The brain is in this loop.
Hmm.
And so, I spent a lot of time explaining those sorts of systems and how these work.
Yeah. Does speaking affirmations over your body and over your life help you deal with this at all, or is that not a thing?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. So again, every chapter I've actually got an affirmation in there that supports the process. Um, yes, affirmations do, along with things like, folks that live with chronic illness tend to have some pretty strong negative self-talk.
Yes.
I know I did. It's a habit that humans have anyway. We tend to put ourselves down quite a lot. But when we're living with chronic pain and we believe we're a bit of a burden and we say things like, I'm never going to get better, or this is only ever going to get worse, or this pain is going to kill me, or, that only like everything you say, your brain believes. Every truth, the word you speak, your brain believes is true. And so we have to change the language of pain. And so that's a lot of what I and we do in pain coaching is reframing the language. I mean, I rarely use the word pain as an example. I normally use the word discomfort. It's
Hmm.
just a softer word, right? It's
Yeah.
just a softer word for the same thing. And so when we find words like that, and we change the language, things do absolutely get better. So you're spot on.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. And the brain tends to believe something whether it's real or imagined. So we can use that to help us too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that again is the marvel of, neuroplasticity. And this is a relatively, I mean, we've been talking about it for 20 odd years. The thing is, it's still a relatively new subject. And, you know, medicine hasn't really caught up to the science. So
Hmm.
we still treat pain as if it is tissue damage. And so that's why when you go to the doctor, you get prescribed a pill, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I'm trying to change the conversation a little bit and talking a lot about coaching and all of these really helpful things so that the treatment is actually happening in our head.
Yeah, for sure. So you referenced that you are a pain coach. For those of us that have never heard of such a thing, what is it? How did you find it? How did you
Yeah.
fall into this?
So, look, my darkest day, I was sat in this room here in my office, and I was wrapped up in a blanket, shivering, and life was terrible.
Mm.
I mean, I turned into a shell of myself. I couldn't do anything that was a hobby of mine. I never went out anymore. I was miserable all the time.
Mm.
And I had been told that I will not get better. I will probably only get worse, which is a pretty awful place to be. And so without being too kind of dramatic, I had decided that I didn't want to go on that way. I had made up my mind that if this was the best that life was going to give me, that I'd lived a pretty good life up until now, and I really wasn't interested in living a life of suffering. And so I had decided I wanted to meet with a counselor who would help me arrange my affairs in such a way that I wouldn't be a burden to my family going out of this world. Again, I know that's a very dark thing to be saying, but that's where I was. I'm being honest. And so the next morning, it was about 6:30 a.m. I got on the computer and I Googled pain counselor. I figured if I could talk to a counselor who understood enough about the condition that I had, the disease that I've got, that they wouldn't try and talk me out of this, and that they would help me. And look, I get that it's not a very logical way of thinking, but I wasn't thinking very logically. I was in this fog of pain.
Yeah.
And so in that fog of pain, I come to my computer and I type in pain counselor,
Yeah.
and a very weird thing happened. These words, pain and coach, popped up. It was like they sort of like leapt out of the screen at me. They were in the middle of the page and they sort of jump out in this divine, weird sort of a way. And I'm like, pain coach? I've never seen those two words together.
Right.
Why now? I've been looking and reading books and watching everything that I can watch. Like 10 years, I've been like studying this thing and I've never seen these two words. And in every one of the hundreds of appointments I've had, I've never seen these words. So I click right on it. And it's a business and there's a phone number. And I think right away I go to leave a message at 6:30. Ring, ring, ring. Somebody actually answers the phone and I burst into tears because I wasn't expecting another human to answer the phone. I kind of got myself worked up to leave a voicemail message. They answer the phone. It's a lady called Jenny, and she can tell I'm upset. She says, I can tell you're upset. Let me just explain what pain coaching is. So she gives me kind of a 10-minute kind of download of what pain coaching is. Are you interested? Yeah, I'm interested. She got me booked with someone within 24 hours. I was meeting with Jareen. And that was it. So I met with Jareen and I spent about 6 months working with her. And it was an incredible process. And I was definitely learning things, but it's a little bit like watching your hair grow or your fingernails grow. You don't really recognize that your hair is growing. You don't recognize that your fingernails are growing, but there is something happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at about the 6 month mark. And Jareen had noticed that I had made quite a lot of progress, but being me, being in it, I didn't really see the progress. And so she, she had me read my little update book that I was writing, and she pointed out the massive progress that we'd made. And it was just sort of incredible when I look back over that 6 month of where it come from to where I am. Huge, huge progress.
Yeah. That's amazing. We are coming up against our next break, and we're talking about pain coaching, and we're talking about redefining pain to make it something that is manageable and productive. And we talked about his upcoming book, Reframing Pain, Understanding Pain in Everyday Terms. We will come back after the break. This is Success Profiles Radio. Please stay with us. Don't go away. We will return on the other side. Please stay with us. Okay, commercials playing again.
That's amazing how quick. I mean, I like time goes like it's shocking.
Yeah. When I tell people it's an hour long, they're like, oh, but it's like, it goes fast, I promise.
Oh yeah.
We
Yeah.
have three commercial breaks and segments are, 12, 13, 14 minutes, and it goes fast.
Yeah. So how did you get into doing this?
Well, I've been doing this since January 2012. I've always been told that I have a voice for radio.
You
I
do.
did speech competitions in high school and college, and I've always been told that, well, my very first year in high school, there was an event called Radio News Announcing, and so I did that because as I was reading a description of all the events, I didn't want to face an audience, and so I got to sit in the next room, and the sound was piped into the next room where the judge was, and so I didn't have to face anybody except the guy holding time cards for me. and I did so well. In Iowa, what happens is if you get a 1 at state, you can't do that event next year. They force you to try something new. Okay. And then by the time I was eligible to do it again, I'm like, there's no challenge in this anymore. I've already conquered this. So it's always been in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something radio related. I always thought it would be, music, being a DJ. But it's more glamorous than it sounds because it doesn't pay very well. But then talk radio became something I wanted to do.
And this show will clearly demonstrate the principles: if I can do it, you can do it. So let's get back to the show. This is Success Profiles Radio. And here again is your host, Brian K. Wright.
And we are back. This is Success Profiles Radio. And once again, if you've not downloaded and subscribed to Success Profiles Radio on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, please do that. Leave a 5-star review. That would mean a lot. It really, really would. So, Alex, let's talk a little bit about when the doctors told you that your pain would never go away, this would never change. How did you react to that? How did you accept that?
I mean, it broke me, honestly. I had spent a long time chasing to get I really, like, I kept being told they didn't know. For many, many years, this disease is, it's not very well understood. There's 200,000 people in the US, we believe, that have complex regional pain syndrome. So those are pretty low numbers from a population point of view. And, there's not like a test you can take per se. There's not a genetic test yet, although there are some markers, we think. So when I was told that, and I was told, like, there's no cure. There's, best we can do is manage symptoms, is what I was told. And it broke me because to give you a sense of what this is, to give you a sense of what this pain is, I have it in my hands and my shoulders predominantly. It started in my hands. So I describe my hand pain as, imagine you have slammed your hand in the car door or something, and it's not that instant shock. It's the 10, 20 seconds later. It's the burning, stinging when you're trying to shake that pain off. You're trying to get rid of it by shaking it. That's the pain, and it's with me 24 hours a day. Now, that's what I was living with then. I now know, I told you in one of the breaks that I meditate. So I meditate in the morning. By meditating in the morning, I can bring my pain down a couple of points. By me doing some breathing practices, I can bring it down a point or so. Interestingly, by me working in a way that I'm working in a sort of mode where I'm helping people, which might sound peculiar, but if I'm working on some like advertising thing from the olden days, that's not very healing to me. But when I'm writing a blog about healing, oddly, that makes a big difference to me. And so I spend my days doing these little incremental things that bring my pain down from up here, down bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, to the point when, by the time I get to the way doctors describe, the 1 to 10 in the pain score thing, by that time I get down to like a 6, 5, 6, I'm able to work. Like, I'm able to function pretty well at that point. So the goal for me is to get down from a 9 to an 8 to a 7 to a 6 through the course of my morning. And there's a number of ways that I do that.
Wonderful. Is there a support group for this? Are you connected to other people who are experiencing this too?
Yeah, so the greatest support group for me is so apart from individual pain coaching, I do group coaching. I still do it. I'll never stop. So I do group coaching, and you're obviously very familiar with the way group coaching works. And it's very, very similar to any other sort of coaching modality, where what's really beautiful about it is you come to a virtual room with, I don't know, half a dozen, 10, 12 people, and we're united by the common framework of all living with complicated or chronic pain. And so what's beautiful about it is we talk about the pain and discomfort that we've got. We talk about techniques and things like that, but we also are able to hold each other's hand in moments that's really, really hard when someone's had a setback or a failure. Maybe someone who gave up drinking has fallen off the wagon, and we're there to support that person. But similarly, we've got these great successes and we celebrate with each other. And,
Yeah.
you feel like you're part of this sort of community, and it's a very loving, it's just a really beautiful space where
Yeah.
we're there to look after each other. A lot of the communities, like the Facebook, I mean, there are a ton of Facebook groups and stuff like that, but they focus so heavily on the negative.
Yeah.
There's look, there's a place for that, but there's just such a heavy emphasis on how terrible life is, and it's very problem focused and not very
Yeah.
solution focused. And
Right.
in the odd occasion when I've gone in there and I've tried to be sort of supportive and offer some ideas and things we can do, you got 20,000 people leaping on you, telling you you're a nutcase. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit tricky in that environment, but I would say group coaching is just like a terrific place to be.
Yeah.
And then look, I know half a dozen other people with the illness that I've got,
Hmm.
and being there for that person. And similarly, the other way around, it goes for me too. Being able to call someone that deeply understands
Hmm.
is incredibly helpful, because I don't know, it's not misery shared. It's more kind of misery supported. It's understanding each other, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So how do you overcome extreme anxiety and rebuild your identity? Because we addressed that in the bio.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm a different person to the person I was even a year ago.
Hmm.
Before I come on with you, for example, I will sit for pretty much in between every single appointment or meeting I have in my day. I will sit for 5 minutes quietly. I will do some breathing. I'll do some visualization. I'll put my feet firmly on the floor to ground myself. I mean, I do these things and they're very, very important. Again, they sound hokey and, what have you, but grounding yourself, I literally do that. So I have these techniques that I follow that help me with anxiety. Do I falter? Absolutely. It happens all the time. I know my triggers. I know things that I mustn't do. If I walk into a room and the television's on and there's two people having an argument, I'll leave the room.
Hmm.
There are things that I know. If there's little yappy dogs are a trigger for me.
Hmm.
Um, they just are. So I try and avoid little yappy dogs.
Yeah.
There's things. And I'm rebuilding my, the person that I was is not the person I am today.
Yeah.
My everything about me is different in terms of the group of people I work with and surround myself with and everything else. My friend network has changed. It's all very, very different to what it was.
Yeah. That's fantastic. We talked about finding your why and finding your purpose earlier. How has that helped you transform the way you view stress?
Uh, it's an interesting one. I mean, stress was, I don't, I believe, I mean, this disease has been in my body.
Yeah.
It's been in my body. I believe that it's always been in my body.
Hmm.
And it was through stress that, and the work that I was doing, that it sort of made its way out into the world. I was living a pretty crazy, traveling all over the world and winning and losing clients, and that world is not pretty. And
Hmm.
I believe that that's what kind of took me to the precipice and kind of didn't help me with this illness. And so now I am very, very, I'm very on top of I check in with myself. I know where I'm at. I know what my stress level is. And I know the state that I'm at. So I know that if I need to, you know, do some sort of an exercise to bring my internal temperature down a little bit, then that's what I will do.
Yeah.
So I just think I'm very, very aware of, my physiology and what I need to do to bring and to calm my central nervous system.
Yeah, for sure. And when you find purpose, it changes your energy, right?
Absolutely. And that's, that I mean, For me, I would say that's been 50% of the equation is, yes, I was already heading in the right direction, but the minute I was able to give my pain purpose, the minute I was able to redirect my life, it was the epiphany and everything fundamentally changed. I mean, I wrote the book. I'm writing another book because I know that through doing that sort of a work, it's healing for me. It is my medicine.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. So when you deal with something like this constructively, it tends to make you a better person and a better leader, right?
Yeah, I would say so. There's a lot that I look back on, Brian, that I'm not particularly proud of.
Hmm.
I don't think I was a jerk of a boss, but I don't know, I wasn't the greatest person in the world. I was arrogant. I
Hmm.
was short-tempered. I demanded a lot of people. I wasn't very grateful. Gratitude shows up in my life in a very significant way now. So yeah, I'm a completely different person in that regard. I'm just a better human.
Yeah, yeah, I can certainly understand that. And we've got maybe a couple minutes or so left to our final break. Let's talk about finding alignment and how that has helped to heal you.
Yeah. So I mean, I truly do believe that I was never actually meant to be on the path that I was on.
Mm,
That uh, I just feel like the universe had different plans for me,
mhm.
and you know, I hadn't followed the plan of the universe, and it kept trying to push me off, and I was stubborn and arrogant, and so I kept fighting against the plans of the universe, and that got me to a point where I couldn't do it any longer, and it kicked me on my butt, and
Yeah.
I I had to surrender. So surrender is something that we should talk about. I know we've only got a minute or so left before your break,
Yeah.
but I had to surrender. And it was when I surrendered and put my hands up, which is, all right, I accept this illness. Now show me what I need to do, that things changed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And let's talk about surrendering for a little bit. I mean, how did you reach the point where you accepted it and it was okay because now you know this is what you're gonna have to deal with?
Well, so there's this acceptance and commitment therapy that my pain psychiatrist actually told me to do, and I remember swearing at him and telling him to, take a you know take a hike because being told that you got to accept something when you're living it is really really hard. But I read the book The Surrender Experiment. That
Mm.
was my key. An incredible book that I would suggest that anybody reads this incredible book, The Surrender Experiment.
Fantastic. And who's the author?
Um, it's on the tip of my tongue. I cannot think of it right this second. I apologize.
Okay, we
Very
can look it
famous
up.
author.
We can look it up, and we're coming up against our final break. I can't believe how quickly this is going. Please stay with us. Don't go away. We will be right back.
I can't remember. It's Michael something.
Michael Singer.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, that's fantastic.
All right, I'll give a shout out to Michael Singer's book when we come back.
Yeah.
I know you discussed a couple of practical tools we can use, but maybe if there's some other suggestions you can give to us about how to deal with this, that'd be awesome. Um, Maybe the career pathway and opportunity there is in this field. I'm sure,
Yeah.
like I said, most people
Yep.
probably have never heard of
Yep.
this. And so, what does a career path look like? How do you qualify yourself to be a coach? And then, client success stories, people you've worked with. You don't have to say their names, obviously, but we would love to hear
Yeah.
some successful experiences
Yep.
about how your work has impacted people positively. And is there
So many
anything?
people live their lives wanting more than they currently have. And this show will clearly demonstrate the principles if I can do it, you can do it. So let's get back to the show. This is Success Profiles Radio. And here again is your host, Brian K. Wright.
we are back. Down the stretch we come. This is Success Profiles Radio. My very special guest is Alex Crowther, and we're talking about dealing with chronic illness constructively in a way that can change your life and the lives of the people around you. And before we went to the break, we were talking briefly about a book called The Surrender Experiment. It is by Michael Singer. We looked it up during the break. So The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And Alex says it's a fantastic book. And so we take his word for it. If you are dealing with chronic pain, that is a book you should check out. So you did allude to some practical tools we can use immediately. Let's talk about some other things we can do if we are talking about chronic pain, or, I mean, I don't know if I have a friend who experiences ear ringing a lot. That's something that has just never seemed to go away. How can we deal with that? Some practical ideas.
Yeah, it's funny because the list is so long of these things. The thing is, none of them are like earth-shatteringly like spectacular and like this great epiphany. So I mean, think things that I do that work for me. Leave my phone behind and go for a walk. Being out in nature, okay? Being in nature and mindfully doing it so that you're out there. So I will go out for a walk, but again, my phone stays here. I'm not looking, I'm waiting for my email. And it doesn't have to be a lot. I'm talking about 10-minute quick walk. Looking at the trees and the leaves, listening to the birds, trying to spot nature. Again, being very mindfully in tune with being outdoors. When the weather's a little bit different, the snow on the ground right now, I'll take my shoes and socks off, go outside, step on the grass. Again, being in contact with the ground, writing. It can be creative writing. It can be journaling. I hate journaling. I hate writing and talking about my specific, issues, if you like. That doesn't work for me, but I know 3 or 4 people that it is a hugely helpful tool. And so, I guess the point is that, through this process, you get to learn. And again, in group coaching, we'll talk about these things all the time. There are many hundreds of things that you can do that become good therapy. What's important, and the reason having that trigger response plan is important, is knowing the 2 or 3 or 4 that work for you right now. And you have easy and quick access to them so that when you feel that flare coming on, when you start to get a sense, now for me, I have a very good sense quite far upstream of when I know a flare is coming. I get a very warm forehead and I start to sweat a little bit, and then my stomach starts to hurt. So it used to be I didn't know that pain was coming until I was in pain. Now I've got these upstream little signals, and they're very, very subtle. And so when I get these subtle kind of upstream signs, I'll go and do one of these things, and I can very often escape the flare itself.
Wow. That's fantastic. I love that. That's all fantastic. And
Yeah.
I do believe in writing and journaling. I used to journal all the time, but as a writer, as a professional writer, I do write about the things that I'm experiencing, and sometimes that can be very therapeutic too. I mentioned writing a letter to my dad when I was doing the Grace Lessons I Learned from My Dad book. That was one of the most therapeutic things I think I could have done to help me deal with that situation. So let's talk about the career pathway and opportunity of
Yeah.
pain coaching. Again, a lot of us probably haven't heard of this. How do we get involved if we want to help other people through the pain we ourselves are experiencing, if we have
Yep.
it?
Yeah, so it's an interesting, this, I mean, this is how I kind of got involved. I wanted to see, Jareen had really helped me. So I said to her one day, like, can you talk to me? Tell me, like, what do you do? What do you do to be a pain coach? And she sort of explained, and she put me in touch with the folks. There's only one school that's training pain coaches specifically, and that's Pain Coach Academy.
Oh, yeah.
And so I went to the source, and it turned out that they had some needs. Their needs were the skills that I had. They were coaches. I wasn't a coach, so they were great at the skill of coaching. They weren't so great at some of the things I had skills in. So that's how we kind of came together. But in terms of the pathway, so what was happening for a long time is all sorts of coaches were popping out of the woodwork and nobody actually had formal training and what have you. And so one day, an organization called the NBHWC, the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches, came into existence. And so now there's you got to take this, you got to follow a very strict program of academic learning, and then there's an exam. So we teach the fundamentals of health and wellness coaching at Pain Coach Academy, and then we add on a lot of learning around chronic pain. And then there's the board exam. We got a 90+% pass rate on the board exam, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Off you go. You take the board exam. That qualifies you to be a board certified pain coach or board certified coach. Then we got an advanced, path as well, which is another 12 weeks, and then you are a certified pain coach at that point. So it's a great pathway. Now, as long as you're somebody who is compassionate and has the ability to walk someone on the journey of sort of healing, it's a job that anybody can do, and it's incredibly rewarding. But it is a fantastic career for anyone who lives with chronic illness, because you don't have to hide your illness. You can live your illness. So often do people with illness have to hide it, and it's a real shame. And instead of being able to like embrace and live authentically who they are, it's flexible. You can work from home. If you need to take a break, you can take a break. You schedule your clients in a way that works for you. And so there's a lot about it that works for people with chronic illness, not least of all talking about things all day long that are healing. So you're talking about pain neuroscience, which is healing. We know that. You're talking about things, some somatic exercises, which we know are healing and helpful. So all day long, you're practicing the skills of healing. So it's a fantastic career for, in that regard.
Absolutely. How about sharing a successful client success story?
I mean, it's hard to figure out which one. I mean, look, there's a lot of folks. I'll give a couple of examples. I'll give one in particular. So, one person living with complex regional pain syndrome. They were talking. It was actually quite triggering for me in the beginning, because the language that they were using was so sharp and so pointed, and it really reminded me of my own situation in the beginning, and I had to remind myself that this is not my story. So that was interesting. I had to get past that myself, but this particular person, they'd had a surgery on their knee, and it was after the surgery on their knee that they ended up with complex regional pain syndrome,
Mm.
and they didn't know about coaching. I had made acquaintances through somebody, an introduction, and the point that this person was at was, first of all, they were going to have a pain pump installed that would do nothing more than mask the pain for a limited amount of time. And they were in dialogue with their doctor about an amputation, which is a very common, well, not a very common, it's a pretty common thing with complex regional pain syndrome is, remove the area of pain, because, it is deemed to be kind of like the last option. And so I had the dialogue, which is, look, let's just see if we can work together for a couple of months, if we can delay that decision, and start this process of coaching where, yeah, we explain what pain is and we go through, you know, some of these softenings of the experience, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we got to about 3 months in, and they had noticed that the experience of pain had certainly decreased enough that they would put on pause the idea of having this. They put it off till the end of the year. And I had agreed then that if we could, what would it take for us to get to a place where we take that off the table forever? So we set some goals, which is something we do a lot in coaching, as you know. So we set a couple of goals, and off we went, and we worked towards those goals, and we exceeded those goals in terms of overall pain reduction. And but it's a process. Look, that takes 6 months, and it's work and it's commitment. But this particular person was prepared to work, and saving their leg was a big part of the goal. But they absolutely did it. But it's incremental. It's slow. It is not an instant quick fix.
For sure. If you could talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell him?
Um, there's a couple of things. I think one, I have become a very hopeful person. I wasn't always a very hopeful person. So hope is something that has become sort of foundational in me. But I think this is just that I have a strength inside me that I didn't really know that I had.
Hmm.
The strength to sort of endure this. Which is why in my weakest moment I was ready to exit this world,
Hmm.
but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave this world. I just needed to know that this experience could be softened,
Yeah.
and instantly it was 2 days from me having that conversation from the day that I thought I wanted to leave this world until I met with my coach that my experience started to soften. I mean, it was literally because somebody was able to show me some hope. And
Wow.
so it's an incredible thing.
Yeah, for sure. How can we find you, learn more about you, and maybe work with you if we want to?
Yeah, so the easiest way, I tried to make it incredibly easy. So reframingpain.com. If you go to reframingpain.com, there is a very simple, it's very simple form. Fill in the form. I ask you in the form if you're a healthcare provider looking for information, or somebody looking for coaching, or somebody looking for education, whichever track that is, I will help you. So I've made it as easy as I humanly can. Reframingpain.com.
Fantastic. Any final thoughts before we close?
I would just say, look, if you're living with chronic illness and you think that the door is shut and locked, it is not. There is always hope. I promise you that there will be a coach that is ready to hold your hand and walk the journey with you. Honestly,
That's fantastic. Alex, thank you so much for being here. This was a really great episode, and I think we learned a lot today. Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. And thanks to all of you for listening. This has been Success Profiles Radio. Join us every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, where I interview another world class achiever, learn what they did, what they overcame, and what we can take from that ourselves. Until next week, take care, everyone. Have a great week. Goodbye. Okay, we're done.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate your time.
You're so welcome. I'm glad you were here.